As from today, Kmart's Waratah store and Gorican on the Central Coast will trade until 10 p.m. Monday to Friday. 5 Newcastle and Lake Macquarie Coles supermarkets, plus 4 on the Central Coast, will also follow suit. The move is an attempt to tap into the lucrative market being captured by convenience stores run by oil companies in service stations, which Kmart says in some cases are selling goods at a 50% markup on the normal retail price. Shell Shop manager Graham Henderson denies this and says time will tell.
I think the public will decide because we are a convenience store, and in many cases shops like that are an inconvenience store. It's inconvenient for them to park in a big car park, walk a long distance, grab a trolley, stand in a long queue to check out.
Changing lifestyles is also given as another reason for extending hours. An increase of shift work and the instance of both couples working full-time means standard shopping hours aren't convenient anymore. So it seems with all the changes, it's the customer who, to a large extent, is calling the shots for the retail industry.
We're customer driven. If the customers want us in sufficient quantities to extend our hours, we'll do that.
So what does the customer think about the move?
A lot of people can't get away till 5 o'clock and most shops are shut then, and they can do their shopping after they finish work and after tea and come out and do a bit of shopping, which is quite good for them.
I guess shift workers might like to, come in and shop at night when they don't always have the opportunity to look around the shops.
Mr Smith says a number of competitor stores in Newcastle have been operating under extended hours and appear to be doing okay. For Coles and Kmart, the extended hours will be trialled for at least a month and then reviewed. Newcastle didn't escape mention in the Giles Royal Commission. The main focus, the payment of special and unsuccessful tenderers' fees. As to the extent of this, the report suggests Newcastle was not insignificant nor materially different in nature from the practice in Sydney. One local view differs slightly.
I don't think so, and if there has, that will be the subject of the task force inquiry down the track, and as there are other parties involved in that, I don't feel that I can comment on that at the present moment.
So if there has been, though, do you think it's been as intense as Sydney?
Oh, nowhere near.
Much of the evidence on the Newcastle projects was provided by the Newcastle Master Builders Association, which Mr Steep emphasises is an autonomous body separate from the New South Wales MBA, which the Commission report recommends be deregistered. Newcastle's part in the report focuses on the James Fletcher Hospital and the Rankin Park Hospital projects. The Rankin Park project involved joint venture company Hutchison McCloy. It's reported the company made an unsuccessful tenderer's fee arrangement for $500,000 for each unsuccessful tenderer. But after one payment, the company was wound up. The James Fletcher Hospital involved successful contractors, FH Compton and Sons. When contacted today, Compton management said they hadn't fully read the report and refused to comment. In evidence to the Royal Commission in relation to the James Fletcher Hospital project, it's reported the company fixed a special fee and arranged unsuccessful tenderers' fees totalling $175,000. The report also suggests the deregistration of the Building Workers Industrial Union. The local branch is outraged.
This thing was a witch hunt aimed at the building unions.
Mr Cochrane says he'll be studying the report further and possible ramifications for local BWIU members.
questions about the future of the 25-year-old sewerage plant arose when Council and the Public Works Department tried to rectify the odour problem. It now seems to be under some sort of control, with a mist-like substance containing diluted tea tree oil and water smothering the smell. But the existence of the plant is now being questioned.
We've tried to address it with what you might call masking the smell. We haven't been able to stop the smell, but that's one option we will look at, whether the plant can stay here with a very expensive odour treatment. I expect to treat the odour problem would be rather prohibitive, and better to just move the plant entirely.
A report by the Public Works Department in 1980 estimated the life of the plant at 10 or 15 years. With the Tuncurry area growing rapidly and the plant situated amongst residential areas, the report seems to be online. Tuncurry Council will now approach the Public Works Department to finance and conduct another report on the plant and its future.
Essentially, the new Act will combine the former Mining Act and the Coal Act, which will bring about a number of advantages, such as halving the range of exploration titles available. This will simplify and so speed up applications and help clarify further the rights of both the explorer and the landowner. Also, a new assessment lease title will be introduced, increasing the time a company can hold off before mining after approval has been given.
It's simplified approvals, I guess, for new mining operations, but new mines still won't go ahead without the market and the necessary economics behind them. So we may see some benefits in the future when economics in the industry improve, but at this stage I don't see any immediate result from it.
For comment today, the United Mineworkers Federation said it knew little about the latest changes, but is concerned about the government's move to do away with the Joint Coal Board. Also, the Federation has undertaken a campaign, Survival 92, to point out the problems for Australia's biggest export industry and the effect the mining downturn is having on the community in general.
A core of Aboriginal culture has managed to survive in the Hunter, centred around Mount Yango near Wollombi. From it, 7 tribes now draw fresh understanding of their traditional laws and practices. Chief Custodian and Elder Dr Len De Silva of Armidale, who earlier this year was awarded a Doctorate of Letters at the University of Newcastle for his efforts at preserving the culture, has decided the time is right for an Aboriginal perspective of environmental issues. Ill health will prevent the elderly Uncle Lenny from attending the conference in Rio de Janeiro.
This is the first time that our elder, the old boss man, has come forward to let us take the fullness and richness of our culture through the highs of a lawman to the world, to offer them and to give them something that is so unique and so old and so real that we were able to survive as of today because of what was handed down through the spirit of the land.
Similar to their counterparts at Marathon Stadium, the Falcons have dropped their last 3 matches by narrow margins, but haven't played badly in any of their contests so far this year. However, in a league as strong as the National Basketball League, it is imperative to bounce back with a win, and it is a must against lowly placed Geelong tomorrow night.
We're desperate for a win after 3 disappointing losses, and it's very important for us to get back on the winning track, especially at home.
It's a tough league. We know that. We can lose 3 in a row and still get in the playoffs. But we'll have to do what maybe North Melbourne did and maybe win 6 in a row after they lost their 3.
Jason Joins comes into the lineup to replace Paul Kuiper, who's out injured. Despite the losses, it's still a happy bunch over at the basketball stadium.
People can't get discouraged with this team. We're playing good basketball. We just got to do the little things that'll help us win the ball game.
And the coach Tom Weisman joined in pre-training hilarity this afternoon, and it was a costly exercise for this reporter. Terry Dozier was in the money after Weisman missed all 3 attempts from the halfway line. But when the NBN money was on the line, this. and to prove it was no fluke and win more dough the very next shot. Maybe the coach will suit up against the Cats tomorrow night.
The service might not have been its usual high standard, but that didn't seem to matter. Hundreds of celebrities from sport, politics, television and the general community did their bit to raise money for children's charities. $1 from every Big Mac sold goes to helping underprivileged, sick and disabled children. It's hoped around $400,000 will be raised. Some familiar NBN faces were amongst those taking orders. The response from the customers was mixed.
Do you think he knows what he's doing?
No. But he's not doing a bad job. He's doing quite well.
Any hints?
No, just keep smiling.
Encouraging for Knights player John Schuster, but what about our own Mike Rabbit?
Could you give him any tips?
Yeah, stay on TV.
The bikers travelled in convoy from Sydney to the Newcastle office of Federal Land Transport Minister Bob Brown. Around 400 riders protesting against legislation which makes daytime headlight use compulsory for all new bikes. According to Greg Risk of the Motorcycle Council of New South Wales, the legislation introduced in March makes riding the machines unsafe.
The legislation gives motorcyclists, it takes away the motorcyclist's right to turn their headlight on and off according to the conditions. In some conditions, a headlight on can be more dangerous than having a headlight off.
Believing they've been ignored by both levels of government, the bikers have formed their own political party called Riders' Rights.
We've been protesting for many years now. The only way we feel we can win is to actually become politicians and get in there and change it from the inside.
The group wants to see Mr Brown ousted as the minister and today distributed these pamphlets in his Hunter electorate of Charlton. Mr Brown was unavailable for comment. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Teams from Gunnedah, Barraba, Moree, Tamworth and Corindai travelled to Narrabri for the carnival. For organisers, the number of players interested in junior rugby is a pleasant surprise.
Junior rugby has really picked up this year, I suppose, since the World Cup, the winning of the World Cup last year.
For most of the games, there were several extra people on the field. As well as the referee, there were two coaches to direct play and to pass on some helpful hints.
You've got one ref. He's a former country player, and of course the two other fellows, they're just to sort of help assist the game. For the two ages of 8 and 10, you do need quite a bit of supervision to run these little blokes around the paddock.
In the under-8s, Gunnedah defeated Tamworth, Narrabri took out the under-10 division, and Tamworth won both the under-12s and 14s. Coming off 3 losses on the trot, Newcastle looked to have the 3 quick first fans leaving the ground in droves. But then the big comeback finished by that man Brett Kenny. Kenny speculator finding winger Lee Odenren finding the line. The Knights went 40 minutes without a penalty. David Waite was furious with referee Steve Clark. Last night Newcastle's mentor said it wasn't a fair shake of the sausage. Today he expanded on that.
From the coach's point of view and the player's point of view and the referee's point of view, you want to get it right. And what we've done is send a tape down, and as we normally do, if we find some areas that we want to work on or that we see there's a problem, and we want to work with the league in that.
On his team's performance,
we made some mistakes in the second half, which we ended up paying pretty dearly for, and we have to work positively towards correcting those mistakes or eliminating those mistakes out of our game so that we can put 2 good halves of football together.
Newcastle was without Glanville, Brunker and Harrigan. Waite says they're missing the chief up front.
I suppose he's considered the form front rower in the Winfield Cup at the moment, what everyone's saying that he is, and you obviously missed that quality player.
The Knights have dropped to 9th spot on the ladder. On Saturday, another tough assignment up against leaders Eastern Suburbs at Marathon Stadium.
State government and an offer by Tim Moore in April for a clean-up of the site. The residents are suing council for negligence in approving 2 residential subdivisions in 1984 and 85, totalling 36 allotments. They allege council knew the land was contaminated with products from the timber treatment plants. Residents claim they have suffered gastric upsets, nausea, skin ulceration and hair loss, and say their land and homes are now worthless. The case is listed for mention before Justice Hill in the Federal Court on Wednesday.
A good crowd on course and a good field. 17 starters lining up for Gunnedar's premier racing event, and a consistent filly by the name of Miss Goodwood Park brought home the bacon. The placings 15, 13 and 5, the Quinella 85.80, the trifecta paid a handy $2,103.60.
Celebrations began this morning with a school service. While dignitaries looked on, students from throughout the Hunter traced the 100-year history of the cathedral in Newcastle with a smorgasbord of singing, dance and drama. Then a reenactment of how the church became a reality 100 years ago. On this day in 1892, Governor of the colony, the Earl of Jersey, arrived in Newcastle and was greeted by the city's mayor and dean. They then marched to the cathedral to lay the foundation stone. Today, their successors retraced their steps. At the same time, just down the road, an Episcopal procession consisting of bishops from various dioceses throughout the state, including the Archbishop of Sydney, Donald Robinson. Once at the cathedral, the processions united with visiting clergy from around Australia and filed inside for a religious service. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Schools were largely deserted, parents accepting the teachers' advice in the main to keep youngsters. The teachers themselves, meanwhile, met at the YCW Club in Armidale to hear a report on the latest developments in their dispute with the department. Teachers in country areas are particularly concerned by the changes to the transfer scheme and fully endorsed a vote for a further stoppage if the department is not prepared to negotiate.
They keep hinting at a picture, but they won't ever tell us what the picture really is. So what they're saying is that perhaps there'll be a staffing allocation for each school, and that could be on an average of wages. Now, if that's the case, you've got too many expensive teachers in Armidale.
The Education Department in Tamworth claims that 40% of teachers in the northwest ignored the Federation's strike call, but this still meant disruption for students, particularly those doing the HSC.
Those students obviously are looking toward examinations at this time of the year, and they don't have their HSC too far away. But I think it's critical for all students. Any disruption to students' educational programs is disappointing.
Mr Lind said the department is determined to press ahead with its changes to the transfer system and will not budge from its position, despite the call from the Federation for more talks.
The department has negotiated a great deal with the Teachers' Federation in an attempt to provide a solution to the present issue of staffing and transfers. And what we've come up with, we think, is a very positive approach in terms of lateral transfers, which still enable staff to transfer, but at the same time give parents the opportunity to participate in the selection of staff for schools.
Dr Alastair Sim, a medical researcher at Newcastle University, has been testing how toxins affect an enzyme common to humans, animals and plants. Blue-green algae toxins attack the same enzyme, so recently he applied the test to algae samples from Grahamstown Dam. The test, Dr Sim found, detected toxin levels existing in the algae, a step ahead of most currently used tests, which detect toxins only after they've been released by the algae into the water.
We can detect subtoxic levels of the toxin far long before they actually get toxic, and so they can be dealt with before a toxic problem arises.
The joint research project between the Hunter Water Corporation and CSIRO looks at the next stage of contamination, when toxins are released by algae bloom into water. Their aim, to find a method of decontaminating toxic water, rendering it drinkable. This involves two stages, the first starting next week at Griffith CSIRO in laboratory conditions similar to this. It involves mixing algae toxins with different types and levels of a specially treated carbon.
It's been treated so that it's got a very large surface area for its mass, and it's developed that it'll actually absorb organic materials into the carbon structure and take them out of, in our case, what we're concerned about is taking them out of the liquid.
Stage 2 will use these results in a pilot study at Grahamstown Water Treatment Works. It will involve a model of this water treatment system being set up. Mixtures of water and carbon will be fed through the simulated system to gauge the effectiveness of the carbon throughout the entire treatment process. If successful, the Water Corporation will then consider adding a permanent carbon filtration system to the existing treatment process. According to Water Corporation Chief Paul Broad, it's a costly but vital investment.
We have no other option, and we think the carbon filters will work. We don't think that's a long-term answer though. We think it's a combination of improving the quality of the water in the river plus the treatment are the long-term answers.
While Cessnock people have seen the nearby vineyards grow as a draw card for tourists and money, the City Council has been concerned about the waning of the central business district. A council report laments that Cessnock's three foundations, Minds, Wines and People, have been forgotten in the CBD's presentation and operation. To revitalise the city, the council has adopted a Main Street strategy. The plan aims to beautify the CBD and Vincent Street, including planting trees and preserving heritage buildings. The council is also looking at creating a landscaped gateway to the city to make Cessnock more inviting to tourists. Alderman Joel Fitzgibbon says a council project to demonstrate what is possible in Vincent Street will soon be undertaken. He hopes that will spur on businesses and residents to participate in the long-term strategy to bolster Cessnock's civic pride.
Detectives from Newcastle and Sydney were at the Dawson Street address today trying to find out what happened in the hours leading up to the death of Vivian Isabel Christophas. Her body was found on Thursday morning. She'd suffered extensive injuries and there was blood splattered throughout the house. Police carried out a post-mortem yesterday but have refused to say how she died. Police are reluctant to call the death of Vivian Christophas murder. However, they do believe foul play was involved.
At this stage, we do regard the death as suspicious.
Detectives took photographs of the bedroom where her body was found and articles of evidence have been removed for further testing. Mrs Christophas was well known in the inner city neighbourhood. Jodie McKay, NBN News. The Festival of the Fleeces kicked off this morning with the traditional running of the sheep through the main street of the town. With crowds lining the street, the Merriwa School Pipe Band led the procession to the showground where the festival was officially opened. This is the third year it's been held and it's an important event for the community of Merriwa.
The industry relative to wool has always been a major part of activities in Merriwa. Merriwa started back in the 1820s and the sheep industry and wool industry has always been a major aspect of it.
Keeping with that spirit, the winning float was this travelling shearing shed. During the 2 days of the festival, the population of Merriwa doubles and there's plenty to do, from camel racing to sheepdog trials, fashion parades and a day of festival games. It's all about having fun and even at the most inopportune moments, there's plenty of that.
The 113 Field Artillery Battery is part of the 7th Field Regiment. The Army Reserve Unit has been stationed in Newcastle since the Second World War, but its history goes back to the late 1800s. Today, the regiment faced the traditional challenge outside Newcastle's Town Hall before being granted freedom of the city. The traditional honour was afforded in recognition of the battery's defence of the city 50 years ago when the coastal guns exchanged shots with a passing Japanese submarine. That attack will be commemorated at Fort Scratchley's gun emplacement at 2 o'clock tomorrow with full military pomp as well as a remembrance service. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
It was an opportunity for generations of students and teachers to relive their school days. Mrs. Bates from Gloucester is the oldest ex-student.
Oh, such memories, and these pine trees. But of course, the street, it didn't have this round here in my day.
Some things have changed. This was the first building erected on the site in 1892. After an initial enrolment of 12, there are now 45 pupils at Karangi Public. Classrooms were open to visitors, photos and memorabilia on display.
Inmates of the Warramai Juvenile Justice Centre were helping to load furniture when it was noticed just after 10 this morning that 3 were missing. Police from Hamilton and Newcastle joined staff from the centre to comb the surrounding Broadmeadow area, including a network of stormwater drains. A blue T-shirt, believed to be worn by one of the boys, was found in a drain, but by late this afternoon, the absconders had not been found. According to Warramai's Superintendent John Wardell, 2 of the boys are 14 years old and from the North Coast and North West, while the third is a 15-year-old from the Newcastle area. The North Coast juvenile was serving a sentence for a serious firearms offence, the 14-year-old from the North West for damage to property, and the youth from Newcastle for breach of probation. Since the centre opened in 1979, there's been about 5 escapes from Warramai each year. So far this year, that figure has almost doubled. Mr Wardell says a review will be held into supervisory procedures and this latest incident. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Both teams struggled to make the final, securing 5-point wins to set up the grand final showdown. Central Coast opened well in the first quarter to lead by 6 points, with Newcastle committing too many errors in front of goal. A woeful kicking game continued in the second quarter, a tally of 1 goal 12, an indication how much off target they were. But in the third, Newcastle steadied, kicking 3-3 to lead by 16 points at the final change. But the Coast fought back to push Newcastle all the way, but the champions had a little in reserve and ran out winners by 17 points. Still on football, and the Canberra Royals are the inaugural Australian Women's Rugby champions. Held at number 2 Sports Ground, Canberra remained undefeated all weekend and in the final were far too good for the Newcastle Blackbutts, scoring at will and running out comfortable winners 24 points to 0. On the water, the annual Queen's Birthday weekend motorboat regatta attracted many spectators to the shores of Lake Macquarie at Toronto, and boats and drivers from all over the country. The Northern Point Score Championship is delicately poised going into tomorrow's series of races, while today the Ken Waggett Memorial 5-litre Inboard Classic boasted a brilliant field. An even start for all, with the number 7 of Alan Smith grabbing a handy lead. But looming was Queenslander Rod Clinch in Repeater Plastics. He overtook Smith and cruised home to an excellent win. A day to relax at the races today for many of the Knights players and officials after a hectic 10 weeks in the Winfield Cup, which sees the Knights only 3 points from the competition lead, but 9th on the ladder. The 10-0 win over the league leaders East was timely, coming off 4 straight losses. However, an anxious wait for new winger Robbie O'Davis, who was mentioned in the referee's report after this incident with Roosters halfback Gary Freeman. And today O'Davis was smiling when we told him he was in the clear.
I never had any intentions to take the man out, and I think if I did hit him high, it was just all unintentional.
Happy to be in first grade and impressing many with his gutsy display in both attack and defence, O'Davis was confident that the Knights can kick on from here.
Now that we've got it, I think we'll just go forward from here, you know. I can't see the boys taking a backward step from here, and just the feeling in the dressing shed after the game, I think we're just going to go forward from here on in.
But football took a back seat today with picking winners at Broadmeadow the order of the day, although some were quite reluctant to share the latest information. The 6th was aptly named the VP Knights Cup over 1,400 metres. 440 and 170 for Mark Time. Galfire paid $2.70 and number 8 Party Mood paid $3 even. The Quinella $18.90. The Trifecta $358.50.